Hey everybody, welcome. This is Josh and Simon. You've tuned in to Time Zones and Time Meters, our weekly meetup on Zoom, where we both discuss, lots of different topics. This week we're going to be talking about
Mostly music.
Soen. Mostly music, yeah. We try to keep it within the sort of music sphere, specifically the progressive music sphere as well. But we're fine to talk about pretty much anything music related, I guess. So we'll sort of flirt with a few different sounds too.
Yep.
But look, we're the big thing we're going to be working on today is just going through the entire discography of a band that both of us like. And hopefully we won't get in too big an argument, right?
I'm very curious.
That's right. For those of you that have never heard of Soen, it's a Swedish progressive metal band known for their sort of intricate compositions and emotionally charged lyrics. They were formed in 2010 by the drummer Martin Lopez, who's formerly from Opeth, and the vocalist. Go on, can you say his name for me? Because I butchered. There you go. Everyone get that? I'd call him Joel, but that's because I'm like Australian, right? Joel.
Joel.
The band quickly established itself as a force in the progressive metal scene, and they kind of exploded when that happened too. The music blends technical sophistication with deep introspection, often exploring themes of human fragility, resilience, and societal struggles as well. Over the years, they've evolved their sound, incorporating new elements of alternative and progressive rock while maintaining a pretty distinct melodic and atmospheric sort of quality to them. Their live performances are particularly praised for their intensity, offering audiences a raw and immersive experience. I haven't seen these guys live. I'd love to. I've spoken with lots and lots of people who have seen them live, and they just rave about this band. So I guess that's the little sort of write-up or blurb that I put together.
Right.
Did you want to add anything to that?
I think that a little bit of what is significant about their sound is that it can be very beautiful, right? That it's more than that it's very hard or anything or technical. I mean, they have that too, but it's mostly that they really highlight the beautiful, like almost angelic at times with a lot to do with, of course, the vocalist. You will, I would say. But
yeah, no, 100%.
I saw you have spent a lot of time with this band as well. What's your history, or do you want to get to that?
So I sort of stumbled across this band on Spotify. I brought it up with a friend of mine who I always speak to about music all the time. And he'd heard of them a lot. He's kind of said they do some really good stuff, but they're not quite his thing. And so I went off on my own, did some exploration. I ended up joining a Discord server with Team Soen. And got a chance to talk to some of the biggest, most diehard fans, and was on there for a fair amount of time as well. I met some really wonderful people and some very, very passionate music followers. And so I've got a good understanding of what people like about them as well. For me personally, they do some stuff that I really love, like really, really love. But they're sort of hit and miss a little bit with me in some ways. And I guess once we explore the discography in a bit more depth,
we'll get to it, yeah.
Get into that. But for me, the big things that I love about them is, of course, the sort of drumming by Martin Lopez is pretty stellar. I think all of their musicianship, whether or not it's vocals, or not it's guitar, bass, everything they just sort of nail. They're very good musicians. I love their chunky riffs. I think they do a very good job of coming up with a catchy riff. And when they decide to go heavy, I think it's just headbanging, cool sounding kind of soundscapes, which is great. And like you said, that sort of, how can I put it, when they sort of dive into that more melodic, softer, more introspective sort of, stuff is, I think, where they're at their best, or at least that's what my
that's what makes them unique, I would say.
I think it's their biggest draw card for me. I think that's it. And I think my favorite tracks, my favorite songs, generally speaking, have that element of them, whereas some of the other ones, maybe not so much. I think they're progressive, but maybe progressive light in some ways.
Yeah.
And I think also it's worth mentioning that throughout their discography, they've changed a bit. And so they've really found who they are, and there's quite a consistent change as you work through the material too. So
Right.
Did you want to do this in terms of like, we'll just say the album, we'll say where it's rated, or do you want to start with like, what's your number six and what's mine?
No,
And then,
let's go chronologically. I think
yeah, perfect.
that's fun. That it has a then you follow the
Yep.
evolution of the band. And so yeah, so then we start in 2011 with their
20, I've got 2012 as their
okay,
cognitive release, I
2012.
think it is, but
Yeah.
it probably could have been 2011, I think, around that time, right?
Either way,
Um,
cognitive.
yeah, what did you think of it? You go first.
Well, I mean, the first thing that springs to mind is Tool, and I can understand that of course it's the drummer's band, and of course he's been then if you're a progressive metal guy and you are a drummer, then Corey is the king, right? So I can understand that he was very inspired by Tool, and maybe that's also like, even though I really like that complex rhythm stuff, you kind of ask yourself what's the unique selling point here a little bit. And like the beginning of this album, it starts with Fractions, which is a killer track, but it has like even those Maynard kind of vocal lines, and then you think, okay, what is the unique selling point here that Tool doesn't have? But then it ends with this glorious a cappella section. Never fought harder than this, and then you think, oh yeah, there's the unique selling point. I really love this album. It's not at the very top, but it's my third favorite.
Yeah, okay. So this was the first time I ever heard them. I heard the song Savia, which I've played many, many times. I presume that's how it's pronounced. But in saying that, that by far was the thing that sort of got me to them in the first place. I think this is, like you said, an incredibly Tool sounding sort of album. And my commentary would be that this album is, it seems to me to be Soen's favorite music. And we made an album like that. That's the way it seems. Like the band's kind of gone, who are our favorite influences in the world, and we're going to create music that sounds like that. And so to me, I don't think it's a very I don't believe they've found their sound yet. And that first, like this, although it's a very, very good album for sure, and I quite like it, especially quite a few tracks on it. I think because of it's not Soen to me, not yet anyway. It's got glimmers of it for sure that are there. I'm more inclined to sort of put this at, what have I got? I've got Cognitive at 5th out of 6.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree with what you're saying, but I think it's just so good that for me it's one of the better ones. Yeah.
Yeah, and I would kind of agree on a lot of what you're saying as well. So it's definitely very good. Don't get me wrong. I like, most of their discography. So yeah. The next one after that was Tellurian, right?
Right.
Which is
Yeah.
a close friend of mine's favorite album by them. So the guy who I said that, he's kind of hit and miss with them, he likes this album quite a bit, and he thinks it's a standout in their discography too. Him and I have some different opinions quite regularly in music. So that sounds a little foreboding, doesn't it? But this, I don't know.
Agree with him.
This, you would agree with him?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think from a progressive side, I think they're more experimental. They kind of finally started to find their sound a little bit. The song structures, I think, are more complex in a way that's maybe it's not like Tool. That whereas the last album, I kind of feel like their complexity was in that vein, but this is a bit different. I think it's got some really strong sort of tracks and some strong sounds and stuff in it. But for me, it just took a long time to really sort of get into it. I'm a huge lover of the song Void. I think Void is insanely good. I love the words.
Sick.
Yeah, I really like
words too. Yeah.
Yep. And that one's obviously, you've got kind of the more sort of heartfelt stuff that we learn to love the lyricist for. But and I get Pluton's good, Tabula Rasa's okay. Like I always get the 3K tracks confused. Like what is it, Koniskas, Kuriman, and Kamenko. So I know them if I hear them, but I can't tell you which one's which.
Yeah.
But look, I think it's a strong. It's a good album, but for me, they just don't quite. It doesn't quite deliver. So I rate it. I've got it at fourth. So I think it's better than Cognitive. But yeah, what do you reckon?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you that I would say that this album really dropped to me now when I'm re-listening to these albums, preparing for this show, and certainly, wow, the words, that has been my number one song the last 4 weeks in the statistics. It's such a beautiful song, and like they really utilize Joel so great here when he says, I know I owe you more than I have. Wow, it just it feels so sincere and powerful and convincing. And yes, absolutely with the other song, the Void. The guitar works there in the it's sick in the verses with that reverb, the delay effect, and yeah. So that I think here they are really nailing it. I think the perfect mix of this beautiful melodic stuff and the complexity. Also have a note that this is like one of the few times in the song Ennui. How do you pronounce that? It means boredom. I read.
Oh, does it?
Yeah, but in English, it's an English word. But it is like one of the few times where it sounds like Opeth, like the riff there. It has like it sounds like it could be of Ghost Reveries or something. But yeah, no, I even have to say that this album to me is their second best.
Okay. I think this is also going to be I was talking about it a little bit earlier today. And I have a feeling that maybe I've been a bit harsh on this in the past, or maybe it takes a bit longer to grow on me than their other stuff. I'm not sure, but I'm willing to give it another crack because especially we've been re-exploring everything, right, and going back over it. And I think I'm going to, I think I'm going to keep it just sort of lightly on in the background. And just sort of see whether or not I change my opinions because of it too.
Also, they changed bass player for this album from DiGiorgio to the Swedish guy Stenberg, and I like Stenberg. It seems like he's less, doing less complex things, but I love his bass sound. I think it's to die for.
It's groovy too. Like it's got some cool stuff in it. Yeah.
All right.
Next one. How do you pronounce this one? Lykaia?
Lykaia, yeah, I suppose.
Lykaia, yeah. This one was released in 2017, I think it was. Yeah. So what did you think of this one? We spoke quickly about it just the other week.
Right, because I was not. This album never really clicked. I haven't really spent that much time with it. And you said that, well, you have to hear the remaster. So I've been listening to the remaster. I like it a bit more, but it still doesn't quite cut it for me. To me, this is like, it feels a little bit like the leftovers of Tellurian. Like yeah, the songs just doesn't quite do it to me, are not quite as memorable. I have to say that Lucidity is like a really cool song. It's like it's mellow jazz, right? They never went this mellow jazz as on that song. So that one is really a highlight. But no, I do not really rank this album very high. This is my number 5.
Yeah, okay. I've got this one in at number three, funnily enough. So this is what I mean. I had a feeling that I would be a little bit more, maybe more controversial to compared to a lot of people's thoughts too.
I don't know
I
what the uh, paradigm is here.
Yeah, I think look, this album is definitely liked, especially by the sort of Puritans. I think in the remaster, if I remember correctly, there's two extra songs. Um, and so I think both of those are quite good, which is the other reason I recommended the remastered version too. Um, but to me, this has one of my favorite songs by this band on it. So I absolutely love the song Gin. I think Gin is maybe their one of their strongest like tracks that they've ever released. That's their entire discography. And I agree with you that Lucidity is good. I don't mind Stray as well. I think Sisters quite heartfelt. But the and Horizon, Orison, Horizon, I think
Yeah,
Horizon.
that's a cool track too. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's kind of I don't know. To me, this is where they found their sound. This is I mean there was parts of it to me that were in the previous album and they definitely sounded different to being just like Tool light, but now I
To
feel
be
like for
honest, they sound
them
different from Tool also on the first album, but it's so on their sleeve, you know?
that's exactly right, whereas this one I don't think I think people could listen to this without thinking that it sounds like Tool,
Yeah, for
you
sure.
know, and but not just that, they kind of do them well. And so I think this is where they start to sort of brand they've found their identity by the stage. And I think they've still, you know, progressive enough and still experimental enough to kind of you can see the similarities between the last album. Like you said, you thought this was like Tellurian 2.0 or like the offcuts maybe, but I think to me there's this like evolution, and it's this is the stage where I go, this is Soen.
Yeah, okay.
But but in saying that, it's definitely. I actually was going to have this one further down. I was going to have this one further down my list, but I decided to bump it up when I redid it. I went actually. I think it is just it's a bit better than Tellurian.
So
So
for you, it's
if
number three.
for me, it's number three. Correct.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. All right, all right.
All right.
And
Um, then we get to Lotus. I think in the timeline. Yeah, Lotus.
sure do. Yeah.
Uh, Do you want to have a crack at that one first? What do you reckon?
So I've been talking about this album before, right? Because in one of those life-changing albums. So you know, like it is a lot with the album that you discover a band with. I usually that becomes your favorite, right? And it still is. Uh, this really opened up my eyes to what progressive metal can be. That it can be so emotional, so no no dream theater wanking at all with you know like it's just pure emotion, just takes its time. It's very artistic, like one of those things that uh, i I got a bit intrigued by when I discovered this band with this album was how they have these killer choruses, but like spirit of the water. Da, 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 da. If they would have called that song Spirit of the Water, you would know exactly what song it is. But they call
Yeah,
it,
this
it's called, what is it called?
Martyrs. It's Martyrs.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
Martyrs, right?
yeah,
So then I'm thinking, like, okay, so they really did not, or it's a deliberate, I mean, all the songs are, they have killer choruses, but all of the songs have some completely different name, and then you have to go figure out, okay, which song is which one again. But
it's funny. It's funny you're going to say that. I know I'm not going to hijack you. I promise to just be a small part. That was in my notes too. So I was going to make an overarching comment about how so in songs and what they name them. Just it can make it really hard to remember which one's which.
Yeah,
And because they're always these one word, one things, you're
yeah.
just like, ugh. But yeah, my friend always talks about how they always talk about like the elements, like fire and water, and they use those a lot.
Hmm.
And I'd never thought of it until he brought it up with me, right? So
Okay, okay, yeah, that's
so it's
interesting.
funny that you belted out that chorus there. Very well done, by the way. But in saying that, that's exactly, why I love this album so much too. Sorry, I cut you off. What were you saying?
Yeah, no, totally. And that song "Martyrs" was really what drew me into it. And then you discover Lotus, the title track, and you think, "Wow, this is like uh, a song that makes a band, basically." It's like they just scored 10 out of 10 on that one. But then you also have that sleeper hit, Covenant, became later my favorite perhaps. And once again, what also amazed me here was like I never really appreciated this slightly distorted, menacing bass um, before. Yeah, this album really opened my eyes in ways, uh, yeah, that I haven't had before. So yeah, really an excellent album. Yeah, what's your take?
So uh, you and I are on the same page with this one.
Cool.
So for me, this was not my favorite. Sorry, this was not my first one though. So my first one was Cognitive, right? Like the original one. That's when I
Oh,
first
cool.
sort of heard them. So I hadn't heard this at all, and I just happened to jump into it, and it turned straight away into my favorite in their discography, and it's miles ahead as far as I'm concerned than everything else. This is the in my opinion the best combination of everything that they do. It's the heartfelt lyrics, it's the catchy chorus, it's the really fantastic heavy riffs. It's the juxtapositions and contrasts and how they can just suck the energy out of a song, and then you're just like, oh, my heart's panging, and then they just inject it back in afterwards. They just do a really, really fantastic job of kind of getting, I don't know, like creating that, and taking on quite the journey, right? This has my most played song by them at Lascivious, which is, I've got over 200 plays in like 2 years or something. So
Yeah,
it's really up there for me in terms of, I love
love
that
that one as
song,
well. Yeah.
especially just the beginning of it, like the way it opens is great. But I'd probably say that like Covenant is real close to one of my favorite songs by them as well. I agree with you. That one there, I missed. I don't know how I missed it, but after playing it for, this album a few times, it just clicked with me, and it turned into
There's a
probably
couple
my,
of growers.
oh,
Yeah,
yeah, and it really was for me. Lotus is spectacular, and I think it's probably their masterpiece work.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
I don't use that term very often. I think, to me, it's right up there. I think it's one of the most beautifully written songs. I think it's beautiful, it's complex, it's heartfelt, it pulls at my heartstrings. But I absolutely love Lotus, and think it's, really worthy of being a title track in what I think is their best album for sure. For
And
sure.
um, and interesting that you say that with the lyrics, because I a lot of time feel like I'm a little bit of an imbecile when it comes to lyrics. I think like uh, I'm way too simple, straightforward guy to understand lyrics, but um, I was thinking, is it just the way he delivers it, or uh, isn't something like wanting it all is poverty, rich is the one who is free? Isn't that just beautiful, like a beautiful sentence, right? Yeah,
Yeah, I think you're right, and it is probably where, how can I put it? Like, I think Joel, I call him Joel, Yoel,
it's fine. I'm sure he's used to it.
his, yeah, that's right. His vocals are sensational, and I think his delivery is great, and it sort of it allows me to touch on why I like this band, in that they're they sing about themes that make I don't know, like pull on your heart. They sing about the, you know, rising up. They talk about the injustices of the world. They speak out. They, you know, and I really admire them for that and what they do. And I think that's probably one of their stronger aspects, if you will. And this song just perfectly encapsulates, you know, what they do well about that stuff too, which I love. And it's not all about the metal, right?
Certainly
Like
not. Certainly not. No.
for me, the beauty in what he sings and how he sings it and delivers it is just is next level.
Yeah, and I think that the best, you know, genres are, of course, when it comes down to it, not interesting, right? But like the best prog metal bands to me is when you're listening to it and you think, is it metal, or does it just, you know, have that as a part of their repertoire, you know, that they can pull a metal riff in it, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
It should
So
really not be limited to metal when you're making music. You should not be limited to a genre, right?
yeah, and this is where the progressive part of what, you know, when we talk about progressive, people always say, like, do you like stuff that's not progressive? And of course I do. To tell you the truth, I probably prefer music that's not progressive in some ways. But the reason I like progressive and I'm immersed in this and it is my favorite genre is because, and I realize I'm contradicting myself here in the same sentence, is because of like the growth of what you're listening to. For me, it's not about chopping and changing it and doing crazy things that change the way that I think about music, although that is a very cool aspect. Don't get me wrong. But if you can tell a story in a way that's not formulaic, that's not just like chorus, bridge, you know, verse, chorus, bridge, verse over and over, and you can do it in a way that really creates this sort of like journey, then I'm all on board. And I think the best stuff that's out there for me is ones where everything feels like it's a part of that piece of work, and they're conveying their message or they're getting it across, and you know, like that's when I fall in love. And this is definitely, you know, I think they do that really really well in this album. So I guess the next band for us to sorry, not next band, next album for us to jump into is going to be Imperial, right? Imperial was released in 21, was it? I think 2021, feels like about
Yeah,
then.
yeah, yeah.
This album is a really interesting one for me. It's got a lot of plays. Like I've played it through a lot, and I think they further refine their sound. Um, and I think this is where they kind of worked out what they think they should sound like. It's a little bit heavier than Lotus, um, and it's not really as progressive. There's not as many moments, I think, where what we were just talking about with Lotus, like that doesn't happen as often in this album. But I like this because I think it's one of the most accessible prog albums, or prog metal albums that's kind of out there. So if I was to talk to somebody, for example, who was a bit of a metalhead, and they were saying like, "Yeah, so what do you listen to?" And I said prog metal, and they're like, "What the hell's prog?" Right? Like, which I have had that discussion a few times. This is one of the albums that I recommend they listen to as an entryway or a gateway into, you know, this kind of stuff. I think it's heavy, it drives, it hits home hard, it does all the sort of chuggy stuff that they do really well. The drumming's sensational. The compositions are put together pretty well, but really it's their most, I think probably their most accessible kind of album to date. Um, it's probably a little bit overproduced. They've lost a lot of the things that I loved so much about Lotus, if I'm honest. But I like it for the I like it for the cool factor. Let's put it that way. What do you reckon? I'll tell you what I ranked it in a bit.
Well, I think that well, just like how I think that Lykaia is a bit the leftovers of Tellurian, I think that this is a bit the leftovers of Lotus. Yeah, I'm harsh now, maybe, and maybe it's
Yeah.
just maybe I just have not spent enough time with it. But I also, you know, think that there's a reason why I haven't spent enough time with it because you know I've
Mm.
listened to it again now in preparing here, and it's I you know I like it more than I like Lykaia, but It's still not, quite cutting it for me. It's on my fourth spot for me. Um, I think there's, like, for example, Monarch, that track. I think it's like they tried to make another Lotus, but absolutely there's some bangers, the Mellotron-ish intro of Modesty. I think is super cool, and how that, it's a theme that goes on in that song. But yeah, no, I just feel like this is, yeah, if you want more of Lotus, I guess you should listen to this album, but it's not quite as good. So yeah.
Yeah, right. I kind of, I don't know, like I quite like Illusion. I thought that was a bit of a heartfelt sort of thing. So I guess that is, you're right in that it does have that. And the same with Monarch, like they both do have that softer feel. Like when I was recounting it just then, because I actually spent the least amount of time reviewing this album because I've listened to it so much. But you are right in that it does have some of those similarities, doesn't it? I think Antagonist, Lumerian, Deceiver, Dissident, these are just like heavy bangers that I'll put on a playlist. And I have put on plenty of playlists as well. So I think because of how much those have dominated like some of my previous playlists, just because the sounds kind of, I want to get into something that sounds cool. Maybe they've had a few extra plays. And maybe the album has taken on a slightly different feel to me, maybe as well. But look, I think this is, to me, it's safer than Lotus. And Lotus was safer than Lykaia. And Lykaia was safer than Tellurian. And to me, to me, it looks like there is a very clear trajectory that this is following when you look at the discography in terms of like the order of everything, right? And so I think, yeah, I rate this at number 2.
Oh, really?
So,
okay.
yeah,
Okay.
so I rate this at number 2, but I definitely know where you're coming from with it, and I can see why you might think that's the case. And as I said, Tellurian's, I think, going to drift a little bit for me. I'm not sure if it'll end up in sort of a higher spot or not, but Imperial, just because of its accessibility and just because of a few songs in it that I really do love, I put it at number 2.
Look, if I kept count, then I know what album is your number 6.
Yeah.
Want to talk about it?
Keep count. I didn't keep. You're like, do you want to talk about it? No, let's just not talk about it. Look, and to tell you the truth, like, I don't know. Okay, let's talk about it. So with Memorial, right? Memorial. How did you want to start? Do you want me to start?
I was really looking forward to it. Because they had released Atlantis. There was, well, I believe there was like a couple of new things on there, but I mean, it was like rehashes of old songs mostly, and like live recordings and stuff. So I was really excited to get something new from them. And then they teased it first with the title track. I believe they released as a single. Could that be true, or maybe they just promoted that track?
No, they definitely had. I think they did like 2 or 3 singles maybe that dropped, and then they released it, and it probably was Memorial.
At least I believe that was the first thing I heard from this album, at least the title track. And then it starts out super heavy, and then super tight production, and then it has the and you think, wow, heavy as fuck, let's go, Soen.
Yeah.
And then he starts singing. And then he added some harshness, and it kind of sounds like Chad from Nickelback almost, and you think, oh, this is not what I want. And he adds that harshness late, or I don't know if is that
distortion,
the distortion, yeah. And then I think, like, this is not what what he does good, and I don't know exactly what they're trying to achieve
Yeah.
with it.
Simon, I just want to tell everyone out there, and also you now, my favorite thing about these conversations is we don't talk to each other about, like, we kind of come up with a theme or whatever, and then we just
Yeah,
go with it, right? And I love these conversations because of it. So I was very interested to see what you had to say on it.
me
And
too, me
I'm
too.
I'm not I'm not particularly surprised because I mirror it 100%.
Yeah,
At the
yeah.
time of this release, I was still within that sort of Soen Discord server, and they were hyped. They were ready to go, and they were like locked in. They're excited. They were doing like Atlantis sort of parties where they're like watching that stream live and all of these other things. And then when this dropped, they were all like, "Let's go!" And like, to be frank, I just I couldn't get over like the first listen to it. I just went, "What are they doing?"
Yeah.
I thought one of the greatest attributes of this band has been Joel's voice. And I thought, why are we adding effects? It sounds like there's like an auto tune. He's like, there's a distortion that's added. It's just so highly produced. And it just seems so not needed for a guy who is this good a vocalist. I don't understand. And I
No,
don't know if
and
they're trying to have that modern sound, like your sleep tokens and your like, it's sort of big right now as these sort of modulated voices in the pop charts. And, I'm wondering whether or not they're going down that
it
line
could
and
also
trying
be,
to,
look, sometimes you have these singers that are very, they don't hit any blue notes. They go straight. They really hit it perfectly. They don't need any auto tune. But and probably maybe they just add a, a teeny tiny bit, but I don't think that is the problem. I think the problem is the distortion that he sings in a distorted way, like trying to be a bit Dio-ish, Ronnie
yeah,
James. Like he should just have his clean voice,
yeah,
because yeah, like you said, that is the attribute. That's what makes a lot of their music stand out.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. And I'd agree with the sort of Nickelback reference.
Yeah, yeah. And that being said, though, I mean, I really felt like, okay, now I really have to give it a chance, give it a proper listen, because I was so disappointed then that I could not bear myself to listen to the album. And then like slowly I've been letting it, you know, giving it a little more attention, more and more, and now I really had to give it proper attention. And I mean, there are absolutely highlights. I think like lyrical content is very good. Um, like they're commenting on like the rise of fascism that
Yeah.
you have in the
Yeah.
world and stuff like that,
Ukraine.
right?
Yeah, that's right. They're coming on
And
Ukraine for sure.
yeah, yeah, and I want to believe that compassion can be the cure. Yeah, that is very cool, and that uh, um, yeah, that's from Tragedian, Tragedian. I don't know. That's a cool track at least.
Mm.
Um,
I think
and
that
and
was that was probably my favorite track on the album, I think.
that one, and I also have Icon as a standout track because of they have like this instrumental section there that is very proggy, and
Hmm.
I kind of wish that it would be longer. That they would explore more of that side,
Mm.
because that I think they did very well. So it's like
Yeah.
I it's more of because of the context, because it was maybe not what I had hoped for. That if this was another band, maybe I would have looked at it differently. Um, but because it is not a bad album, but yeah, it is indeed. It was not what I wanted. It was not what you wanted. I know other people indeed also commented that it has a fan base. I know that a lot of people like it as well.
It won. I'm pretty sure it won like some album of the year thing on, like, I've seen it win, like it's won a few awards, and
Yeah,
it's had some pretty good critical acclaim. But I wonder a little bit if it's just their fan base who just absolutely love everything that they do. And so they're just like, let's go, and gave it a lot of listens and sort of gave it a thumbs up. But I'm not sure. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
I
I'm
just,
very curious
I
to where they will go next.
that's where I am as well. And I think a good way to I get the impression that they just rushed this. I got the feeling that they came up with some cool concepts, that you've got
But they
the
most
agenda
certainly
that's
haven't, eh? I mean, it was years ago that they released Imperial.
yeah, and I know I think there was like 2 or 3 years between the two, like if I remember correctly. But you can look that up in the background. But I think what I mean is it just this it seemed to me this seemed safe. It seemed like just not. I don't know. I kind of felt like they were trying to appeal to the mainstream. And so I think
Yeah,
they lost what fundamentally made them kind of special was that they weren't necessarily they didn't sound like mainstream. But and so that's just a bit less maybe attractive to me. And I agree, like it's got this, I don't know, it also seemed a little bit forced. Like, I mean, I love
no, but
I used
it's true. It's also like what we talked about with Lotus, how and they done that throughout their career, that they had these killer songs and then they just have a title that is not the words of the chorus.
mm,
Here they do that most of the
mm,
time, right?
yeah, yeah. Well, like Violence Unbreakable. Yeah, they're
Yeah,
easy
yeah.
enough to find. Memorial as well. I just I don't know. So for me, it's nearly
I was
like
getting that idea as well, but then at the same time, I feel like um, that's also what Martin Lopez said when he started Soen, was like, oh, we don't have to worry about the pressure from record labels and this and that, and you know, I really believe it. I truly believe that this is like a, you know, absolutely a passion project, and that they have not gone all cynical.
mm,
Um, but yeah, I'm very curious to where it takes off next. I hope they don't need to go back to the Lotus sound, but I do hope that they change it for something.
mm, mm. I think it's probably I look. I would have come across as pretty critical then. I get that for sure. But like, it's not a bad album. Like,
No,
please don't get me wrong. I don't believe Someone have really released something that's like bad. Like the musicianship's like good. I don't like the vocal production and stuff and the technique used there. But outside of that, like it's still good. The stuff's catchy. It's put together. You know, okay. Like it's good, but it's just to me it was just disappointing, and I worry a little bit too that maybe what happened for me is just that disappointment was so palpable at first that that's tarnished my sort of response to
yeah,
it. And I was very happy to admit that when I first heard it, and so I went back and just like you did, I just revisited it later, and then I
yeah.
revisited it later, and then I revisited it later, and so I don't know.
Yeah, it absolutely has grown on me. You know, I've gotten over
Mm,
that disappointment, but I mean, it will not. It will still be my least favorite out of these.
yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say too. It's like I've played this. I've just had a look down. I've got over 120 uh, like tracks from this album played. So that's a good chunk of time now, and I've given it the time to settle, and I've tried to address it with open ears as well. But unfortunately, this one's just number six for me.
All
So
right.
yeah,
To wrap it up, we have the same winner. We have the same loser. So mine is Lotus, Tellurian, Cognitive, Imperial, Lykaia, and Memorial. And yours
yep.
is
And mine goes Lotus, Imperial, Lykaia, Tellurian, Cognitive, and Memorial.
you got the basics right.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Well, I'm actually surprised. I think, yeah, I don't know. I'm willing to, I'm willing to believe that if I give a few of these a little bit more time again, like Tellurian specifically, and even Cognitive to a degree, because what I'm realizing is Cognitive was a class act. Like
Yeah.
it was really, really good. So I don't know. I'll have to, maybe I should give this another time. We'll have to, well, look, we would love to hear from you guys. I'm happy to
Yes,
discuss it.
yes, yes.
Please like reach
Do
out
we
to us
have
in the background.
any lovers of Memorial?
Yeah, that's right. And for you that are from Team Soen in the background, those people who love this band so much, I'd love to hear from you guys and see what you think. I know I've asked one or two people for their opinions, and I don't know.
And this
I'd
was
love
hard
to.
because it's only 6 albums, so you really want to do it perfect, eh? Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. And also, just it's cool. Like it's just fun being able to have a chat with you guys about these topics. And I guess it's probably a good thing just to say, sorry, Simon, I know I'm rabbiting on a bit too, but our rankings and our thoughts and our ideas, they're purely based on just personal taste.
Yeah.
Like I do not see myself as some form of professional critic, far from it. As a matter of fact, the whole reason that I refer to myself as prog wanderer and not prog critic or anything like that is because I wander around the place aimlessly, like knocking over very expensive vases, shitting on like many people's, opinions, and they should have those opinions because they know a lot more than I do about whether or not that's music or whatever. But I'm keen to learn, keen to hear other people's perspectives, and I know that's what you are big on as well. We're both relatively humble, so don't be assholes to us in the comments below. But get on board, and I've got relatively thick skin, so if you are violently in disagreement,
Come
then
at
get
me.
out
Come
there.
at us. Yeah.
Yeah, just don't be a dickhead about it. That's all I ask. Um, Sorry, I had to insert that too. If you guys enjoyed this episode as much as I enjoyed making it, maybe click like, subscribe, follow us if you can on Instagram. We would really love to chat with you guys about this further. And I can't wait for our next topic, which we haven't decided yet, Simon. We're going to have to
Something with Steven Wilson, perhaps.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea. It's topical. It's had a little bit of time to sort of marinate, if you will. Maybe we should do Stephen Wilson. It's a good idea.
All right. Stay tuned. Then you'll know.
Yeah, stay tuned, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. Peace out, rock on, and yeah, we'll talk soon. Bye, everybody.
Peace.